Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the final hour of Tip Today. Seemingly, my advice about Alexa seems to have worked out there. And I can't find it now, but one person onto us to say that the moment I said it on air, it triggered her Alexa, and all of a sudden I come on loud and clear from Alexa because she was listening on the radio and stuff. Look, whatever way it works, I'm delighted it's working for you again with Alexa, so thank you. Delighted to be joined in the studio now by Muriel and Charlotte. We're going to have a look at all things regarding well-being, and today I think it's largely diabetes. But before that, can I talk to you, Muriel, about your experience of the pouches, the nicotine pouches?
Yeah. When I was listening to you this morning, I was like, I'm delighted you're starting to talk about it. That's one of the biggest things, right? Because it entered my world, I'd say probably about 4 years ago. So that was maybe when they had started.
Just about, yeah.
Just about, yeah. So my eldest was the world of sport or whatever, so was introduced to him about 4 years ago. Brought him home, had him in the sitting room, and I was like, what are they? What are they for? Help you relax, help you play, all of the things that were said this morning. And I said, well, you're not taking that unless I figure out what it's about, or, and give it out and doing the usual. Anyway, we were sitting on the couch. Both myself and my husband said we try it, right? So took one each, put it up under our gums. Oh my God, Fran, it was the worst experience either one of us ever had. Now, I don't know how strong they were or what level they were at, but it made me literally like the blood went out of my body from my head down to my toes. So I was lucky I was sitting down, right? The weirdest sensation I've ever had in my life. And I drink alcohol and all of that kind of thing. Never experienced anything like this, right? Then the sensation started coming back. So as it started, I wouldn't have been able to stand up.
Within what period of time?
Maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, because the other lads were there, the other kids, and they were in stitches laughing. It's like, look at you, one or whatever. But the sensation started coming back. But as it came back, then I got this, when I could stand up, awful urge to vomit. I couldn't stand and get sick to run off to, but I actually did get sick.
That's incredible.
Yeah, within whatever, maybe 5 minutes or whatever. So Seamus took it as well. Now, that's my husband, and he can drink any amount of alcohol and never really be sick. So when he took it, he felt the same strangeness, but he wasn't rendered as in that he couldn't move. So he stood up, walked to the fireplace, walked around a little, and then lay up against the fireplace. And he said, that is the worst ever. He said, I actually feel as if I've lost my ability to do normal things or whatever. And then he sat down again and the sensation passed. But for both of us, that was it. Never again take it.
Never again.
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that odd? Yeah.
Yes, that's very odd. It must have been very strong.
Maybe it was, but these are the things that have been sold.
I know.
Now, we had never taken it before, and we have never smoked, or so there has never been nicotine. We've never used nicotine on any level, so maybe it worked. I don't know.
Any experience, Charlotte, of the pouches? No?
I'm not a druggie. I'm a clean living one along the two of us.
I see. So it's like you're going to talk to us today, both of you, about diabetes.
Yeah.
What is it, first of all? Just for clarity, Muriel, what exactly is it?
Diabetes, there's type 1 and type 2 diabetes, right?
Yeah.
So you have both. So type 2 diabetes is the one that is to the fore now. So it's when you can't control your blood sugar levels, literally, that's the basic, right? And it can cause so many different things when you can't control your blood sugar levels. Type 2 diabetes, it's more lifestyle related now than ever, right? So we would have seen type 2 diabetes maybe from the 60 plus age group, going back maybe even 10 years ago.
Yeah. They're
talking at the minute of maybe about 530 million people worldwide have diabetes at the minute, type 2 diabetes, and that's going to rise to about 780 million by 2040, I think, isn't it? That's crazy numbers, but it's a lifestyle related illness in relation to what we're doing, in what we're putting into our body and whether we're exercising or not.
But it's preventable.
And it's so preventable. And that's the piece that is really coming out at the minute, that we're trying to work even with GPs. The HSE have a diabetes prevention programme that we know that the medicated side doesn't work on its own. You have to do the lifestyle piece with it to actually get lifelong relief, or,
right.
keep it.
Now, it's generally associated with sweet stuff and sugar and all of that. Is that a fair description of what
Well, I suppose the
causes
processed
it?
diet, it's the world we're in today and the foodstuffs we have today. So it's not even
hidden
just
sugars and
hidden
all,
sugars,
yeah.
like it's not even just sweet stuff. Like it's simple things, even like white breads and sauces, and the food has become so processed. I work a lot with diabetes in clinic, so I probably would see maybe 1 in 5 people now that have either they're pre-diabetic or they have type 2 diabetes. We bring the numbers back down. Your HbA1c is probably the biggest number that you're looking at in relation to your diabetic numbers. We want it under 44, 42, right? People are presenting to me with numbers of 62 and, in the high 50s or whatever. When we do the lifestyle modifications of the exercise, the diet side, the water, all of that kind of thing, you can bring the numbers down. It's really successful to do the lifestyle side. So I suppose I talk about it a lot. I talk on social media about it a lot because I know how serious it is, which is what we're talking about today in relation to the complications and what can happen, but how you can also bring it back and do the full 360.
What about the age bracket? Who's coming to you with this?
Again, if you're going back to 5 years ago, I would never see anybody under 60 with type 2 diabetes. I would think maybe an odd person in their late 50s. And some of that could even come from, things that went on early years. Now, I think I have definitely a handful of patients that are in their 20s. I have a large number of patients in their 30s, 40s and into 50s. That wouldn't have been heard of before. I don't really see children when it comes to type 2 diabetes, but it is more prevalent now, even when you're going down along into the younger age group. And parents are terrified, and if their child does present with it, they're so upset because a lot of the time they're blaming themselves.
Yes.
Whereas it can be like the whole environment that we're actually in today, even from the school environment.
What scares me about it is that some people figure that it's just a kind of a harmless condition. Sure, everybody has that,
No, and that's the scary thing, is in your type 2 diabetes now goes with the cardiovascular side. So like you are going with like the high cholesterol, high blood pressure.
Yeah.
And what did we say? 570 people a day are dying in the UK from cardiac related to heart attack. And I think about 700 whatever are having a stroke. And this is like coming from the type 2 diabetes side. So that's scary.
We need to be looking at it. Charlotte, you look at it from other angles. Let's take the hair first of all. I mean, is there some connection there between difficulties with hair and diabetes?
Yeah, just going back to what Muriel said there, the word serious. I don't think people understand what a chronic systemic disease type 2 diabetes is. It's a disease of the vascular system. So every single millimetre of your body has access to your vascular system. So every single millimetre of your body is affected adversely by type 2 diabetes, and your hair is no different. So because it's a disease of the vascular system, it causes a vascular restriction, so it narrows the capillaries and the arteries, so it impedes blood flow to all the organs in our body. But if you think about the top of our head and the extremities, like our fingertips and our toes, think about how far away from our heart they are. The blood has to reach those extremities in order to nourish the follicle and to keep it healthy and to supply oxygen and nutrients. That blood has to reach our scalp. So when we have type 2 diabetes, it's really difficult for the blood to reach that scalp. So over 60% of men that are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes will have early onset male pattern hair loss, and it tends to be accelerated. Quite often, actually, they're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes because they go to the GP for either a hair or a skin condition. Sometimes that's how it presents.
And erectile dysfunction?
So erectile dysfunction goes along with diabetes and hair loss because it's the same thing that causes it. So diabetic neuropathy, it's damaging the nervous system, and that's just the constantly high levels of glucose. So obviously when our nervous system is affected, we're not as sensitive. So a man just may not have the same sensation in his penis. If you think about the size of the arteries and the veins in the penis, they're much smaller than the rest of the body. So they're more than likely going to be affected first. Sometimes erectile dysfunction is the first sign of type 2 diabetes. And like Muriel said, that can often be an indicator of underlying health conditions like cardiovascular ill health. So I often say, like, if someone is experiencing erectile dysfunction or hair loss, go and get it checked, because sometimes there's an underlying health issue for those things. Sometimes it's not just in isolation.
You speak about the extremities as well, and again, the stories that I hear would be largely about the feet, and it seems to affect the feet.
Yeah.
Is that because of the extremity? It's the furthest away from the heart.
It's the furthest away from the body, but also, like I was saying, the diabetic neuropathy. So if it's affecting your nervous system, you lose sensation. So if you think about your feet, it's very easy to stub your toe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even when you have full nervous function. So if for any reason your nerves are impeded by diabetes, you can stub your toe quite easily, right? And that can turn into an injury. A, you might not notice, but B, it may not heal. And when it doesn't heal, then we're susceptible to infection because we have restricted blood flow to the foot. So you really have to look after your feet when you have diabetes. Like, it's so important. I think I said it to you the last time I was on here. Cracked skin on our heels, like we all get cracked skin, but if you have type 2 diabetes, your risk of infection is so much higher than ours. And once you get that infection, then it can turn septic quite easily because of the restriction of blood flow.
It's interesting, and there's a regular contributor to the show, a friend of mine, Pat, and he lost a leg.
Yeah, it's so common. NHS have massive bills every year due sheerly just to amputations, which in most cases are avoidable.
So somebody, Muriel, presents themselves to you and says, look, this is the case here. Where do you even start? I mean, you look at the diet, obviously, do you?
Yeah. First of all, when they present, have they been diagnosed? Is it pre-diabetic? Where are the numbers at? So you have to kind of go backwards to come forwards. Is there genetic history? Is there genetic history of like the cardiac side, etc.? So you go in detail into all of that, and then of course the symptom checklist of like how are they, like say like the vision pain, all of it, like kidneys, the nerves, so many different things are affected by diabetes. So you have to see how far down the road the body is. How unwell they are. Some people are like, they're absolutely fine, except for they feel very tired. They might never have the blurred vision, or they might never have the thirst or whatever, but they just feel there's a lot of inflammation as well as in the joint aches and pains and things like that. So it's the consultation again of the symptom checklist, where are you at? And then you start talking about the 5 pillars that I talk about all the time. And I'm doing a lot behind the scenes on this, even, on the education side. And it's all crossing over. The 2 that we can control immediately, we can control our diet, we can control our hydration. So before we ever go down the road of exercise and can I get out for a walk, am I able, that kind of thing, we can control what we put into our mouth. So for anyone that thinks they have early onset diabetes, if they have the pre-diabetic numbers, like that their HbA1c is whatever at the 41 or 42, or their everyday glucose levels are elevated, that's the starting place of, now we need to monitor this. We need to get the first piece right. Like if your blood pressure is elevated, if your cholesterol is slightly elevated, all of this can be helped massively by your lifestyle. So we have to change the habits, Fran. Now, you don't change the habits of anybody overnight. I'm 50 or 60. We've done what we've been doing for so many years. So if you jump into a program and you think this is just going to work like that, it's not. You have to educate. So you have to say to somebody, this is where you're at. This is what's happening in your body. And you have to be, I'm very black and white, and I will apologise when I'm sitting in front of somebody to say, I'm sorry, I am very black and white, but this, I have to say this as it is. You are on a very serious road. If your numbers are at where they're at now, we have to change them. So we don't have to do it overnight, but you have to listen to me. So the very first thing can be, can we get a good basis of maybe a good breakfast and lunch in without any processed food? So if we can do 2 things, a lot of people struggle in the evening.
Yes.
So by the time they sit down at night, they're kind of gone. But if I can start the day well, if I can get into the middle of the day well, and then we're coming to the dinner in the evening time, even if it's a month in before I actually finish out that part and we've established the start of new habits, that's a big thing. The other thing is exercise. Exercise goes hand in hand with diet, Fran. I know sometimes we mightn't like to do it. It doesn't have to be massive. You don't have to join gyms. You don't have to do yoga classes. You have to do the simple things. You have to move. That's the very simple, as in, if it's up and around the house, if it's up walking around, you have to get your heart rate up to move everything through the body, to bring the body back to its efficient state. And I'll tell you, a girl messaged me about 2 weeks ago to say her resting sugars, she'd taken them herself, and she said, Muriel, they were at 18. What do I do? And this was probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, drink water, start drinking your water immediately and go for a walk. Right? She did those 2 things, and when she came back, she said her numbers were back to 11. So you can see how effective the basic things that we can do, how they work. Of
course.
Yeah.
But the craving, though, for, sweet stuff is really worth speaking about, Charlotte, because it's immense, isn't it?
It's immense, but I think you have to really exercise control and become a functional eater, because one drives the other. So I'm sure you're aware with diabetes, people with diabetes, they suffer from dehydration And that's because, the renal system is working so hard to get rid of that excess glucose. So then they have to drink more water. So what,
you're peeing more?
You're peeing all the time.
Okay.
It's like a vicious cycle. So the more sugar they consume, the more they pee, the more dehydrated they become. The more dehydrated you become, the more elevated your sugars become, and then you get those sugar cravings. So like Muriel's saying, it's the basics of, if you have a sugar craving, stop what you're doing and hydrate immediately, because that will actually turn off that sugar craving, and that will reduce your blood sugars.
That's a very good tip.
It's easy and it's quick and it works. Like Muriel was saying, that lady's glucose fell back to 11.
Yes.
So when she got home, she possibly wasn't reaching for that Kit Kat.
Yeah.
It had passed.
That's it's an interesting tip, isn't it, to hydrate?
Well, the water's a big one, and a lot of people will say to me, even if they're coming down to the clinic and if they're driving for 2 hours, they'll say, well, if I'm driving I can't drink because I need to wee like twice on the way down or whatever. So they're trying to watch that piece. If you're working and you're drinking, another girl, it does clinic work like me, and she said yesterday, Muriel, I can't drink, like if I'm back to back for 4 hours and I'm drinking, I have to get up twice in an appointment to go out and go to the loo or whatever, so people are very aware of that, or mindful of, I need to pull back. You have to drip feed it in. You don't need to drink, like as in drink a glass of water at a time. But if you drip feed it in, you have a better chance of your cells being able to retain it. So you don't need to go to the toilet as often. The other thing is, the less inflamed the body is, the more we will actually retain the water. The more inflamed the body is, the more the water is actually going to run through. So that's one of the basics that you have to do. The other piece is the carbohydrate rich diet. And I'm listening to this a lot. Reduce the carbs, increase your protein. That's what you need to do to sort out anything.
Yes.
But nobody talks about the fat side. So the essential fat piece is the piece, if you can include that in every meal, that reduces your carbs without you even having to try. So if you eat more of like your fish and your eggs and your avocados and your nuts and seeds, and put like your olive oil, your sesame oils on everything, that stops food cravings. That reduces inflammation immediately. And you don't want the same amount of the other stuff. 25% of anyone that comes into me, 20-25% of every meal will be essential fat. So that automatically reduces carbs. We don't need a huge amount of protein. We need a certain amount of protein. That's our skeletal makeup. But we will urinate out if we put too much in. And there's a certain age profile that they're shouting at, like protein in every single thing, menopause especially. Like if you have too much then and you're urinating it out, again, you're causing the dehydration side. Again, the vitamins and minerals that you need in the micro amounts are actually being urinated out. So to get the balance, that's the piece of, and not overthink it, Fran.
Yeah, and Charlotte, what about reversal? I mean, let's take the hair loss, for example. I mean, as you bring down the numbers, are you reversing the symptoms?
Yes, you are reversing the symptoms. Like, that is the number one answer to all the problems that diabetes causes, is to get the blood sugars down, because the higher your glucose levels are, the more inflammation there is present in the follicle. The more inflammation there is, the more hair loss you're going to experience. So people with type 2 diabetes, they have metabolic syndrome. You're familiar with what that is?
I don't think so.
Do you want to explain really quickly what metabolic syndrome is in layman's terms?
Metabolic syndrome is literally, you're talking about a Q-risk score even for diabetes. Like, your body isn't able to metabolize sugar properly. You've a waist circumference that's bigger than the norm, so there's a different level for men and women. So there's a few different things, in relation to your sugar numbers, that kind of thing. So if somebody, and most people that will come in with pre-diabetic numbers will possibly have metabolic syndrome, that they have they're overweight, their BMI is at a certain level. So you're talking about 4 or 5 things together will say you have metabolic syndrome.
Interesting. Yeah, a listener wants to know, does diabetes cause swelling of the lower feet, and can it be missed in a blood test? Kind of interesting question. Yes, it can, where the feet are concerned.
It depends what they're testing for in the bloods.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most common ways of people being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes is actually skin issues.
Yeah.
So most people go to the GP because they have a rash. It might present on the lower half of their legs, and we call them shin spots. People might go to the doctor because they think they have a rash.
What is that, like a darkening of the skin, is it?
It looks a bit like hyperpigmentation, is the only way that I would call it. So we call it diabetic dermopathy, but that can be one of the most common ways that people are diagnosed. They can also have skin tags on their neck, in their groin, under their arms. They can have really dark patches. Sometimes they look a bit velvety. It's a look. You can actually see it when someone has hyperpigmentation around their neck area. I can actually spot it at 10 paces.
Wow.
Quite often they will go into the GP because of those skin tags, and actually the GP will say, I think we need to test you for diabetes. Now, obviously there'll be other indications as well, but skin is actually one of the fastest ways to actually sort of say, I actually think that you need to get tested for diabetes, because those vascular rashes are very unique and specific to type 2 diabetes. They don't look like anything else.
And sorry, just want to say, go back to that point there. You said, can it be missed or picked up on a blood test?
Well, one of our listeners asking about that.
Came across a case study lately, and now Asian, African, Caribbean, we're looking at earlier numbers, so they can actually get early onset a lot earlier than what we can.
Oh, yeah.
But some of the case studies that are even coming through on it now, your blood sugar numbers don't have to be elevated, and you can present, so you can have some of these symptoms, but not actually have the elevated sugar numbers. So, like, that's the early onset. It can be there, so we would keep a very close eye. It's a warning, and you have to do the screening. So, like every 3 or 6 months, you are screening somebody like this. But the lifestyle piece is what you put in place immediately and see can you reduce the inflammation. And one of the biggest things that people have to listen to, and I say it again and again and again, Charlotte backs me up on this, is in the body shouts at us, the body talks to us. So if there is like swelling in the ankles or feet, why is it there? If there are any symptoms at all that aren't normal or weren't normal, like in the last 6 to 12 months, why are they there? There's something happening.
Does it frustrate you, Charlotte, that a lot of us have symptoms about things and we go along and it almost becomes the norm? Do you know, like we might even go to the doc about something else and not mention it in some way.
Not really, because I think sometimes these symptoms are so small and it's over a long period of time. And I think a lot of people think that hair loss is attributed to age, and it's not. I've said this before. Hair loss is a direct result of a health condition. No one loses their hair for no reason, just because we're aging. If you're losing your hair, there's a reason why your hair is falling out.
Is it not genetic in some cases?
Genetic, yes, but genetic is hormonal.
Okay.
So male pattern hair loss is caused by androgenetic alopecia. So hormone is endocrine system, which is a health issue.
So you might be predisposed, but there's no need for it to happen.
There's no need for it to happen. So we have to manage the underlying cause. But no, what we're saying about the skin even, sometimes it's something small, like people might have a wound and it won't heal.
Yeah.
You wouldn't normally go to a GP because you have a scratch that won't heal. It's something that you wouldn't really take, I think, you wouldn't pay much attention to it. But I think it's only when those symptoms start to stack up, people go to the GP. And if the GP is sharp, he'll put all those things together and say, we need to test you for type 2 diabetes.
Okay, but there's a lot that can be done, and can be done pretty quickly, I would say, Muriel.
Totally. Like, the numbers are coming back with me all the time. So people that come in and we do it without going outside the box. Yeah. It is literally what you can manage to do every day within your world. That's a big thing. You can go on the HSC website, Fran. So for anyone, there's you can do like a Q-Risk. So you can, I think it's HSC, DPP, Diabetes Prevention Programme, and there's a quiz there. That you can actually just answer the questions in the quiz and see whether you're, predisposed to it or whatever.
Very good. If people want to talk to yourself or Charlotte, how can they do that?
Charlotte can do it today.
Thanks very much. They can contact us on 062 88
All right, give that out one more time just in case people are scrambling for a pen or something.
062 88
All right, okay. Look after yourselves, guys. Thanks very much for coming into us. That's Muriel and Charlotte. We'll take a break, back with more in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.